The December 16th meeting of the Arizona State Parks Board to order at this time. And with that, I would like to ask Vice Chair John Sempton to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board member roll call.
Dale Larson,
Here.
John Sefton,
Present.
Lisa Atkins,
Here.
Jeff Buchanan,
Here.
Debbie Johnson,
Here.
Sarah King,
Here.
and Terry Palmberg.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much, and welcome. We have Sarah, Terry, and Debbie online, and the other four of us are here in person at the meeting. And we have Director Bob Rochide, who is also on the line, and then the rest of Tim and the staff, Nikki, et cetera, are here in person as well. I would like to just start the meeting as we usually do with the oral confirmation of our mission statement, managing and conserving Arizona's natural, cultural, and recreational resources for the benefit of the people, both in our parks and through our partners. And then also our vision statement, which is Arizona State Parks and Trails is the indispensable to the economies, communities, and environments of Arizona. And that's certainly going to be confirmed time and time again today with the agenda. I would like to make a change in the agenda. Item 13, which was an executive session, will not be considered in today's session. That will be moved to a future opportunity with it. So with that, we'll go to Agenda D1, approval of the minutes. We'll review and consider action to approve the meeting minutes from November 18. Is there a motion from any of the board members?
Terry Palmberg, I will move approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Board Member Palmberg. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, State Land Commissioner Lisa Atkins. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, by acclamation, all those approving the approval of the minutes from the November 18th meeting signify by saying aye.
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 The motion carries unanimously. Item D2, the motorized grant applications, will consider and may take action to approve, modify, or deny funding for the submitted 2022 motorized grant applications. And Mayor Eberhardt, take it away.
Crickets, that's not good.
I want that.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm Matt Eberhardt, the State Off-Highway Vehicle Coordinator for Arizona State Parks and Trails. Today we have two motorized grant applications that have been submitted for review and possible approval. The first from the Bureau of Land Management and the second from Natural Restorations. Currently, Arizona State Parks and Trails Off-Highway Vehicle Program has $6 million available for grant funding. The grants are scored based on priorities established in our 2020 Trails Plan. You may notice a discrepancy in scoring between the two projects. The natural restoration projects primarily focuses on one of those scope items, whereas the Bureau of Land Management covers several different scope items that were brought forward in the Trails Plan. That's why there's a slight discrepancy in scoring. I will go ahead and provide an overview of each project and then be happy to answer any questions. And I do believe we have our sponsors on the phone as well. So, starting off with the Bureau of Land Management, they are requesting $412,969,000 for 4 travel management plans. The match provided for these 4 travel management plans is $421,228. The Bureau of Land Management, Arizona manages 12.1 million acres, and travel management planning has provided 11,565 miles of routes. Approximately 23,000 miles of additional routes may be designated under the 18 travel management plans that are still to be finished. Without travel management planning, areas may have have to be closed to prevent damage to resources. BLM has some of the most visited off-highway vehicle areas in the state, including Table Mesa, which is their most popular, as well as the Boulders off-highway vehicle area, both close to Phoenix here. Funding may increase for travel management plans in the future. However, funds to complete travel management plans are contested with other recreation infrastructures such as construction projects, trailheads, recreational shooting sports, route maintenance, and other recreational sites. The Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Group had several questions regarding this grant request. The first of which was, what is a route evaluation? Route evaluations essentially take a look at all aspects of a trail to help determine its eligibility as to whether or not the trail/route will be added to the system's inventory as open, closed, or with limited access. Another question was, will the BLM be bringing on additional staff to assist in the completion of these travel management plans? To which the response was yes, they currently are working to bring on Logan Simpson to assist with the environmental assessments for the project. Another question was, is the BLM working with the off-highway vehicle community? Yes, their field offices gain valuable information from the local OHV communities as boots on the ground to help with route inventory and also help in the public process. All travel management planning involves a public solicitation for feedback. In addition, the question was asked how long a route evaluation typically takes. Anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes more depending on the complexity of the route. At the last board meeting, it was brought up what had happened with the previous 2018 travel management plans. And I can go ahead and tell you that the 8 travel management plans that were brought forward as part of that project planned to be completed between December of 2021 and October of 2023. The project is eligible for funding and was recommended for full funding by OFAG and AORC. And BLM Arizona State Director Ray Suazo is on the line, and we're both happy to answer any questions related to the project.
Thank you, Matt, and welcome Ray on the call. As the board will recall, we did have this on the agenda last month and then asked for some board questions and comments that came forward. Board members, do you have further questions and thoughts on this particular grant with BLM?
Mr. Chairman, Matt, you said something about future funds. Were you referring to future federal funds?
I believe it just would be, they have a queue of travel management plans that are set to be completed as part of their process. And so that would be, I'm not sure if those would be grant requests or if those would be federally matched dollars or what that would, so maybe defer to Ray on that
Yes.
question.
Maybe a question for the director.
Director
Yes,
Ray, did you hear the question?
This is Ray. Yeah, I think I heard it. Good morning, Lisa. I think that was you.
It was.
Certainly there will be, future requests as well. And so let me back up and say we absolutely appreciate all the past support that's gotten us this far. We're one of the BLM states probably that's done the most in the way of travel management planning. We are hoping for, dollars through the infrastructure bill, future dollars as well. We're looking to, add staff, ORPs, et cetera, to help with this work. It'll be a combination of, available MLR dollars that we will apply and any additional grants that we're able to, to procure or to get a hold of to get this work done. And, the reason why it's critical for us is, like state parks, we, through the last couple of years in the pandemic, we've seen, anywhere from a 50 to 200%, increase in use of our public lands, and having clarity in where folks can go, being able to outline, appropriate routes. And one of the things that happens is, folks don't, they don't care what's on the map. They cross from BLM land to state land to forest land, et cetera. And, it's important for us to highlight for them appropriate routes and to, while we're inviting them and welcoming them to public lands, to also, pay attention to the importance of, conservation and reducing impacts on wildlife, spreading invasive species and the conflicts that are created when we have a lot of recreation uses in the same area. And so we're on schedule. We're hoping to have all of our travel management plans completed by 2025, and the bulk of them, as was mentioned, scheduled through 23. And the grants that you provide are extremely helpful. Not all the MLR dollars that we get, from that are appropriated to us are for use in, this particular arena. And so we take resources to do things like restoration of vegetation issues and fuels treatments, but when it comes to route inventory and recreation specific, there are only so many dollars that are available, and the grants that you provide, help with that. The other reason why, we're focused on trying to get this work done is really the tourism and the clarity for the visiting public. And when we don't tell them where to go, they go where they want to go, and that creates a situation where we're having to police the impacts rather than invite the public out to, enjoy our public lands. And it has an impact on all the neighboring lands as well, whether they're state, private, forest, etc. And so we're just really trying to get this work done. The you provide, really help in the way of providing clarity to the visiting public and, reducing the facts. And, as far as our route evaluation process, it's really about taking a look at, from A to B, if we've got 10 routes that have been created through use, and we're really only looking for, 3 for the public to be able to properly utilize that resource while we try to reduce impacts and allow for other uses. That's what the evaluation process is about, is to really see how do we provide appropriate access while we're also protecting the resources that we're responsible for. And I know other public lands see a lot of impacts, and I think some of those are neighboring to us. And when we have the opportunity to tell the public, here's where we prefer that you go and the types of uses that we're able to provide there, it's a lot more helpful. It reduces the policing activity that we have to have and the impacts, on public lands, and it turns it into a situation where we're inviting the public to enjoy our public lands. For Arizona, I'm not expecting use to reduce at all. In fact, I expect tourism, especially outdoor tourism with public lands, to increase tremendously. And so, having a plan for how to manage that use is critically important to us. I've talked to Bob a little bit about broader recreation planning, as we see this visitation and this use on our lands, and we want it to work, and we want the state to benefit from it. The other thing that plays a role here is use activities, whether it's mining, grazing, other appropriate uses on public land, large infrastructure projects. Having the properly delineated routes both help to provide access to those areas and to also limit access that's going to impact or put those utilities at risk. And so that's also part of our travel management planning effort, is to take a look at those things. The type of access that we prioritize and provide for through our travel management planning, in addition to general recreation, linear transportation, things like mountain biking, equestrian riding, hiking, etc. Then we're also looking at things like hunting and fishing access, high rec areas, energy production, and then as I mentioned, where we have a need for resource extraction, whether it's minerals or other. So we're on schedule to really pick this up. I know there were some questions about why did we slow down in 2018, and I'll just say directly to that during the last administration, travel management planning was not the highest priority, and we didn't have the resources to, move it to the front of the priority list. And so there were other things that were at the front of the list, and essentially I didn't have the resources. I had to, put things on pause, but right now it's a high priority. We want to get these plans in place for, all the reasons that I've just, summarized, and we're hoping that with your support we can, continue to move forward.
Thank you. Lisa, any other?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. Other board questions or comments to the director? All right, thank you very much. Ray, appreciate your answering those questions. So Matt, you want to go to natural restorations then?
Happy to. Mr. Chair, members of the board, we also have a grant request from Natural Restorations. They are requesting $259,900. Budget items will include 22 cleanups statewide, trash and graffiti removal, supplies, dumpster rental fees, executive director labor, director of field operations labor and planning, restoration team labor, mileage, ice, water, and food for volunteers, and match will be provided by volunteers and the U.S. Forest Service law enforcement. The Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Group, again, had several questions for this project, one of which was asking about Natural Restoration's annual operating budget. In years past, their operating budget ranges from $300,000 to $350,000. However, this year it's actually going to be closer to $375,000 due to outside grant opportunities from SRP, Overland Expo Foundation, the U.S. Forest Service, and Arizona Federal Credit Union. Another question was, why does OHV grant dollars make up such a large portion of their budget? And this is because the majority of the projects that they complete are on or along off-highway vehicle trails or off-highway vehicle areas. Unfortunately, the public that's utilizing these trails, they're using them to dump, so it just provides easier access for folks that are doing the wrong thing. And then, do OHV dollars get used for non-motorized trails? The answer to that is no. Any off-highway vehicle grant dollars that they receive are specifically used by Natural Restorations for OHV areas and OHV projects only. OFAG also asked what type of law enforcement efforts can be used to help prevent this type of dumping. Natural Restorations turns in any information that they do find when they do clean up. So if there's addresses, names, phone numbers in the materials that are dumped, or if they physically see the illegal activities happening, they'll take license plates and report that to law enforcement. In addition, U.S. Forest Service law enforcement has committed to bringing on additional patrols in high dumping areas to hopefully curb this bad behavior. The off-highway vehicle group also wanted to make sure that the recreation community is aware that while the off-highway vehicle community at times can litter and there can be some negative behavior associated with the off-highway vehicle community, that in large part the cleanups that Natural Restoration is doing are not from the off-highway vehicle community. I don't know any side-by-sides that could carry a hot tub out into the middle of forest, so in large part they try and do their best effort to educate the public on what type of dumping is happening, where it's coming from, and that it's mostly household trash and things like that that's being taken out. So they use their social media platforms to help educate the public on curbing the bad behavior, where the bad behavior is coming from, and how to prevent it in the future. This project is eligible for funding and was recommended for full funding by the Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Group and the Arizona Outdoor Recreation Coordinating Commission. And Nicole Corey with Natural Restorations is on the line, and we're both happy to answer questions related to this project.
Thank you, Matt. Welcome, Nicole. Questions from the board? Commissioner Atkins.
Mr. Chairman, Matt, do we have an idea of where these areas are, or it's just a blanket amount for so many acres?
Yeah, so they have an outline of the areas that they're going to hit, and they try and hit different areas each year. So they have 21 or 22 selected areas throughout the state that are off-highway vehicle specific, because again, a lot of people will come out with their truck, but they'll utilize the OHV trails to be able to access and dump. So they have a set area, number of areas that they'll hit throughout the year.
So more specifically than that, are they federal lands, are they private lands, are they trust lands? Do we
I
have,
can speak to that.
thank you.
Go ahead, thank you, Nicole.
Thank you for your time. So we have a mix of Arizona State Trust Land projects and U.S. Forest Service projects that include the Tonto National Forest, the Coconino National Forest, the Coconino Red Rock Ranger District, the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest, and the Kaibab. So we do a lot of work on the national forest across the state, but every single project has already been determined. We submitted photos and everything, so it's not just blindly going around the state looking for it. Those projects have already been scouted by us and submitted with photos to state parks.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
as a reminder, Matt, the funding sources for the OHV?
So the excuse me. So the off-highway vehicle recreation fund is three sources. It's a small portion of the fuel tax, as well as the resident off-highway vehicle decal, and now a non-resident off-highway vehicle decal that took effect in September of 2019.
And the balance?
The balance, we currently have $6 million available.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Matt, when Nicole had just mentioned that they send you pictures, at a future agenda, as these cleanups take place, I'd love for you to come and give us a report and show us what those pictures are, where the sites are, the different properties, for us just to have more of a familiarization, because the fact that there's a hot tub on a trail someplace would be an interesting visual for a lot of us to be able to see just what kind of trash and how often it's being done, and then related to the education and the training to be able to keep our trail users certainly more hospitable than what obviously this grant is trying to overcome. So
Yeah, we could.
This is Nicole. Can I add something?
sure.
We submit quarterly reports through the State Parks Grant Portal, and I make a PowerPoint presentation that I include in each quarterly report that breaks down each project that we completed that quarter. It shows pictures. We include links to our website that includes a plethora of before and afters and action photos, and it gives a breakdown of how much trash was removed, how much graffiti, how many tires we removed and recycled. So that data we have been providing, but there's an opportunity for me to come in and provide a presentation. I'd be happy to do that because the photos are just amazing, especially, like you said, the one with the hot tub, and it was sitting on the trail right next to a no dumping sign, which the photo is ironic.
No, we would welcome the opportunity, Nicole, to have you come in at a future agenda
Certainly.
and show the report. So thank you, appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? All right, let's then go. Is there a motion to approve this item?
Sure. Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan, I move that the board approve the 2022 motorized grant applications. First for the Bureau of Land Management for travel management planning in the amount of $412,969, and second for natural restorations for OHV area cleanups in the amount of $259,900 for a total of $672,869.
Motion on the floor. Is there a second?
John Sefton will second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, a roll call vote.
Dale Larson,
Aye.
John Sefton,
Aye.
Lisa Atkins,
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan,
Aye.
Debbie Johnson,
Aye.
Sarah King,
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. And again, thank you to Ray and Nicole for joining us on that particular item. Let's go to D3, the appointments to the Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Group. Matt, you're still up?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm still Matt Eberhardt, the OHV coordinator with Arizona State Parks and Trails.
Good to know.
Today we have 4 terms that are expiring for the Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Group, which serves in an advisory capacity to the State Parks Board in the implementation of the Off-Highway Vehicle Recreation Fund. The 7 members are appointed by the board and can serve a maximum of 2 consecutive 3-year terms. The group must consist of 5 members associated with an off-highway vehicle group, 1 casual OHV user, and 1 sports person representative. On December 31st, 2021, OFAG has 4 members with terms expiring. Ben Alteneater with the Arizona Wildlife Federation, Jeff Chain with the National Off-Highway Vehicle Conservation Council, Holly Irwin, who serves on the La Paz County Board of Supervisors, as well as the president of the Arizona Peace Trail, and Chuck Wood with Apache County ATV. Our staff recommendations are to have Jeff, Holly, and Chuck return for a 2nd term, and Patrick Headington to serve his 1st term as the sports person representative, with Ben having served 2 consecutive terms. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the 4 people on the advisory group?
Mr. Chair, I will move to appoint to the Off-Highway Vehicle Advisory Group Jeff Chain, Patrick Headington, Holly Irwin, and Chuck Wood.
Motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second. Jeff Buchanan.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Since this is not a financial thing, we'll just do it by acclamation. All those in favor of the motion to approve Jeff, Patrick, Holly, and Chuck indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, Sarah and Harry. And Debbie. All those opposed? Hearing none, it's approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.
Thank you, Matt. Let's go to item number 4, to consider and take action to approve, modify, or deny for the submitted Heritage Fund, local, regional, and state park grant applications. And Mickey Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Mickey Rogers. I'm the Chief of Grants and Trails for Arizona State Parks. The Heritage Fund local, regional, and state park funding provides matching grants for the development of public outdoor recreation facility. A total of $2.5 million was appropriated for the program during the 2021 Arizona State legislative session. All LRSP grants require a 50-50 match, and 3 projects have been submitted requesting a total of $1,335,654. A project sponsor may apply for up to 20% of these appropriated funds, or $500,000. And in case you're wondering on the scoring discrepancy between these 3 projects, Bullhead City has 100% match, and both Coconino County and Quartzsite are seeking LWCF for matching grants, which is the discrepancy in scoring because of the matched funding. The first project, Quartzsite, is seeking $485,654 to expand recreational opportunities at an existing town park to include a light recirculating splash pad at this park. The residents have identified a splash pad as a high priority for the town as opposed to the pool, which requires a lot more maintenance. There are no pools or splash pads in the community or area. Beside the splash pad, the town will be constructing a ramada, putting in lighting, new restrooms, septic, resurfacing an existing playground, fencing, ADA parking, picnic tables, benches, engineering, and related infrastructure for all of these facilities, including water and sewer hookup. Arizona Outdoor Recreation Coordinating Commission recommend, and staff recommend, to fully fund this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And I believe Quartzsite is also on the phone.
All right, thank you. And Clifford O'Neill, welcome. Any questions on the town of Quartzsite splash pad?
So, Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan, and the question's really for Mickey. I could use a refresher or an education on, because I see the next item, we're looking at, I think, the same town and the same project with a different fund. So can you help us understand what's going on? What's behind the scenes?
Sure, Mr. Chair, Mr. Buchanan. So the LRSP program requires a 50% one-to-one match. Most of these communities can't come up with this one-to-one match. So we have the LWCF program, which also requires a one-to-one match. It's federally funding, and it funds the exact same project. So the intent is to use one fund to match the other to get these projects done. So it's a great benefit for these small communities to provide matching funds.
Thank you, appreciate that. Any other comments or questions? All right, let's go to the splash pad project at Bullhead City.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, so Bullhead City is seeking $350,000 in LRSP funding to expand its recreation opportunities at their community park. The city has an aggressive timeline, if approved, to have this ready for construction by April of next year. The addition of the splash pad will be a draw for not only the local residents, but tourists, allowing them to use this underutilized area. This is part of Bullhead's strategic plan. The grant request is all for the splash pad, which is why the cost of this project is less than Quartzsite, which included several other amenities. The project's shovel-ready, the match is secured, and staff is recommended to have this project fully funded. AORC did have a question. The lease on this property is with BLM that expires in 12 years, and the question is what happens if they don't renew it. So in most cases, BLM has an automatic renewal. It just takes, the process takes time. But if that were to happen, the town would have to pay a percentage of the grant back to us if BLM did take this property over. So with that, I'm happy to answer any question, and I believe Jeff is also on the phone.
Thank you. Welcome, Jeff. Any questions or comments from the board? Nikki,
Mr. Chair,
just,
Terry Palmberg, I have a
Go ahead, Terry.
question. I believe that Bullhead City has a splash pad already, is that correct?
Yes, this is Jeff, and thank you, Mickey, Chair and Board. We have 3 parks in our city. Community Park is our oldest, and probably it's our oldest park, and it's kind of in the older part of town. The city, we've been investing a lot of money and time and effort in Community Park. We've expanded beaches along the river, and we've added a museum. It's where our chamber's located, and the current splash pad is a small one in on the other end of town. It gets utilized a lot, and a lot of times it's probably past its capacity. And with the heat we have and the tourists that we have and our locals, they're requesting that we get another splash pad at that end of town.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mickey, I understand because the county, I know splash pads are cheaper than swimming pools, there's no question about it.
Correct.
Although the infrastructure to bring a splash pad is not any cheaper than it is for a swimming pool in terms of the plumbing. I assume they have to get permits from their respective counties, right, in order to manage and operate it correctly with all the different safety, hygienic, and all those issues?
Yeah, they'd have to get several permits before they start project.
Okay, all right, very good. All right, let's move on to Coconino County.
The third project, again, that's seeking LWCF funding as match is Coconino County to seek funding, $500,000 in funding for improvements at Fort Tuttle Park. Fort Tuttle is a heavily used park offering a variety of recreational opportunities. They recently completed a new restroom at the park with LWCF funding next to a recently completed RTP bike park that was well received by the public. The public use at this park has increased, including much more use during the winter months. The funding will be used for improvements to the parking areas, to replace a sewer line and tank at their campground, and also engineering. The county will be providing $200,000 a match, but we'll be using LWCF $500,000 also as a match. Staff and AORC recommend to fully fund this project, and I believe Liz is on the phone if you have any questions that I can't answer.
All right, thank you, and welcome, Liz. Any questions or comments about the Fort parking improvements in Coconino County? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve agenda item D4?
I'll go. I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the funding for the submitted 2022 Heritage Fund local, regional, and state park grant applications, first to the town of Quartzsite in the amount of $485,600 to the city of, or to Bullhead City, splash pad project in the amount of $350,000. And third, to Coconino County for the Fort Tuttle parking improvements in the amount of $500,000.
Motion is on the floor. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, Terry Palmberg, I will second it.
Thank you, Board Member Palmberg. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, a roll call vote.
Dale Larson,
Aye.
John Sefton,
Aye.
Lisa Atkins,
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan,
Aye.
Debbie Johnson,
Aye.
Sarah King,
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, and again, thank you, and Clifford and Liz and Jeff for joining us on the call with those grants, and congratulations. And both to Mickey and to Matt, appreciate you talking about the scoring, because there are differences in the various areas, and that helps us understand a little bit more why one's rated higher and lower on it. So just for clarification, thank you very much for that. All right, let's go to item D5, LWCF grant applications.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, so the Land and Water Conservation Fund provides matching grants, as does the Heritage Fund, for acquisition and development of public outdoor recreation facilities. This is federal funding that comes from the National Park Service. And all LWCF funding projects require a minimum 50-50 match. 2 projects have been submitted in this: the town of Quartzsite for their splash pad and Coconino County for their splash pad. Currently, there is over $3 million in this account, and we anticipate that FY22 funding for the LWCF program will come forward in the coming months to provide an additional $6 million in funding. And if you have any specific questions on the LWCF portion, I'd be happy to answer any you have.
Thank you very much. This is sort of a continuation from the previous one. Any questions or comments from board members? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan, I move that we approve the 2022 Land and Water Fund grant applications as follows: the Town of Quartzsite Splash Pad Project in the amount of $485,654, and Coconino County for Fort Tut Hill parking improvements in the amount of $500,000.
Motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
John Sefton will second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Dale Larson,
Aye.
John Sefton,
Aye.
Lisa Atkins,
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan,
Aye.
Debbie Johnson,
Aye.
Sarah King,
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, and again, to Clifford and to Liz for joining us on this call, and congratulations on it. All right.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the time and effort. You bet.
Oh, thank you, appreciate it. Let's go to the next item, D6, for the SLIF grant applications. Mickey?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the State Lake Improvement Fund provides matching grants to assist state and local units of government to fund projects on waters where gasoline-powered boats are permitted. A total of $4 million was appropriated for the SLIF program during the 2021 Arizona legislative session. 2 projects have been submitted requesting total funds of $853,280. A sponsor may apply for up to 20% of these appropriated funds, or $800,000. And looking at the scoring on these projects, I'll explain a little why there's such a discrepancy. So the scoring is based on the boating survey that's done every 3 years, and the majority of the boating use is in Mojave, La Paz County, and along the Colorado River. So most of the scoring is geared toward those areas. The Timber Mesa Fire District is in the Shoalo area, which is why it scores significantly less than the Mojave County project. So the first project request is from Timber Mesa Fire and Medical District, requesting $53,280 in funding for 4 rescue boats. They identified a gap in service delivery as it relates to water rescue. With a collaborative effort, it was determined the best way to address this gap was the acquisition of 4 rigid inflatable rescue boats. These risk areas include Fool Hollow Lake, Lake Shoalo, White Mountain Lake, Rainbow Lake, and Scotts Reservoir. The funding would be used for 4 14-foot inflatable boats, 4 40-horsepower motors, 4 trailers, tiller setup, labor, and delivery. So one of the questions that AOR asked is the life expectancy of these boats. And the life expectancy of these boats is over 20 years. Timber Mesa Fire and Rescue will be providing $5,860 in match. Staff and AOR recommend fully funding this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and I believe Josh is also on the phone.
Thank you very much, Mickey, and welcome, Josh. Any questions or comments for board members? Board Member Buchanan.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So, Mickey, just a quick question. My assumption is that they have people lined up, whether they're paid or volunteers. They're going to receive adequate training on how to operate these boats and everything.
Yes, we'll make sure certain that happens.
Okay.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, we have another project.
I'm sorry, that's right, Mojave. I didn't mean to short that. Thank you. Teresa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the board, the second project is a request from Mojave County Sheriff seeking $800,000 for new rescue and enforcement boats. Since the last funding cycle for SLIF 12 years ago, the county's fleet of boats has been dilapidated and in disrepair. 11 boats have been decommissioned, leaving the county with a fleet of 9. The county will be looking to purchase with these funds a 28-foot Metal Shark boat and motor, and 2 24-foot boats and motors for rescue and enforcement. This is one of the most heavily used areas in boating in Arizona, and staff and AOR recommend fully funding this project. And I believe several are on the phone from Mojave County if you have questions.
Yes, and I apologize to Teresa, Kyler, and Sheriff Schuster for you're not recognizing you. Are there any questions on the replacement boats for Mojave County? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve agenda item D6 of the SLIF funds?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan, I move that the Arizona State Parks Board approve funding for the submitted 2022 State Lake Improvement Fund grant applications as follows: Timber Mesa Fire District, Fire and Medical District rescue boats in the amount of $53,280, and Mojave County Sheriff for replacement boats in the amount of $800,000.
Thank you, Board Member Buchanan. A motion is on the floor. Is there a second?
Debbie Johnson,
Mr.
second.
Chair.
All right, we've got competing seconds. Thank you, Board Member Johnson, for seconding that motion. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Dale Larson.
Aye.
John Sefton.
Aye.
Lisa Atkins.
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan.
Aye.
Debbie Johnson.
Aye.
Sarah King.
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. And again, to Teresa, Kyler, Sheriff Schuster, and Josh from Mesa, congratulations on your successful grant applications. All right, let's go down.
Thank you very much from Timber Mesa.
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
Thank you for Timber Mesa.
Oh, thank you for, very good, appreciate that. Let's go to item D7, Heritage Fund Historic Preservation Grants. And by the way, I'm doing a tally here of the amount of dollars that's available in these grants overall. And we're well over $12 to $13 million available right now. And you mentioned earlier, Mickey, that another, how much is coming from LWCF?
$6 million.
Again, to staff and to your hard work, and certainly this doesn't for the Historic Preservation Fund, because there's a whole other pool with that, for your hard work in training and working with these communities to get this money out of the door. No small task. It's great that we have a wonderful Santa Claus here with all this funding of opportunity, but it's fabulous the amount of work that you all do working with these communities. So congratulations to you, Mickey, and staff for doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, let's go to Historic Preservation Grants.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the Heritage Fund Historic Preservation Grant provides funding for preservation and rehabilitation of resources listed or designated eligible for inclusion in the Arizona or National Registry of Historic Places. A total of $1,500,000 was appropriated for the Historic Preservation Program during the 2021 Arizona legislative session. A project sponsor may apply for up to 20% of these appropriated funds, or $300,000, and require a 40% match. 2 projects have been submitted in this cycle requesting $450,000. And these are the first 2 that have been brought to the board. And unlike the other programs, these will be brought to the board on a quarterly basis. Phoenix Housing is seeking funding for their Edison Impact Hub project, requesting $300,000 for improvements at the former Crippled Children's Hospital located in Phoenix. The Phoenix Housing will be submitting this building for nomination to both the National and Arizona Registry of Historic Places. Funding will be used to rehab and reglaze 47 windows, replace 16 windows, replace and repair 13 doors, replace roof tiles, repair the courtyard walls, and paint exterior of the courtyards. They will provide $120,000 in match. SHPO staff reviewed and scored this project, and they both were recommended funded by SHPO, the Arizona Historical Advisory Commission, the Arizona Outdoor Recreation Commission, to fully fund. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on these projects. And Catherine and Eric from SHPO are here, and I believe the sponsors are also on the phone.
Thank you, Vicki. Board Member Buchanan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a brief question. So, Mickey, I may have misunderstood what you said. Is this fund for things that are already on either the National or State Historic Registry, or I thought I heard you say that this is going to help them apply for that registration, so I'm trying to sort my way through that.
Yeah, it has to be eligible or listed on the National Register. So in this case, one is already listed and the other is eligible for it.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair, our application, in fact, awards extra funds if the building is not listed. So that's a relative advantage. Almost counterintuitive, so I think desire is to get buildings listed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one more question.
Yes.
Just for clarity, Mickey, the project that we're talking about is the City of Phoenix, or Phoenix Housing is the same entity?
Phoenix Housing, correct.
Correct. And that the project is listed in our agenda is the Crippled Children's Hospital project, which is the same as the Edison Impact project.
Correct. I asked for the clarification on exactly what we have a new online system, and it was difficult to determine what the name was, and we knew it was at the former Children's Crippled Hospital. And I reached out to them before this meeting to find out exactly what the name of the project is.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, any other comments or questions? Of course.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
What is the Dunbar Coalition?
Yeah,
sorry.
We can talk about the
Okay.
next project, and they could certainly answer that.
And just for the Phoenix Housing, and certainly with my background, I know Edison Park, I know that very area. A lot of federal funds are there to revamp that. Complete housing is by the old St. Luke's Hospital project, very needed. It'll be a stellar area, so I'm glad they applied, and I'm glad that this whole area is in a restoration revamped area. So good for the city of Phoenix and good for Phoenix Housing. So let's move on to Dunbar Coalition, and Mickey, if you want to go ahead and respond to Commissioner Atkins' question about what the coalition is.
Dunbar Coalition is a nonprofit, and they're on the phone if you want them to talk specifically about what they are.
Dorothy Harmon, are you on the phone?
Yes, hello.
Hi. The
Can you hear me?
The question is, who are you?
Yeah, so the Dunbar Coalition is a nonprofit organization that formed in the mid-90s, and the coalition came together from 4 member organizations. The Dunbar School Alumni Association, the Juneteenth Organizing Commission, the the Tucson Urban League, and the Dunbar Spring Neighborhood Association were all the member groups that came together to form a nonprofit organization to buy the Dunbar School property from Tucson Unified School District. And at the time, it was a vacant property and really rapidly deteriorating, and was purchased from the Tucson Unified School District for very nominal sum. I think it was $100 or something to that effect.
Thank you very much.
Thank you and welcome.
And currently, we are a 501c3 in good standing with the IRS and with the Arizona Corporation Commission.
Very good. Thank you for that background information. All right, Nikki, back to you to explain the
Ma-
grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The Dunbar Coalition is seeking $150,000 in funding to restore 3 large and 1 small classroom at the Dunbar School built in 1918. This historic campus tells the story of segregation of African American children in Tucson. When the work is completed, the rooms provide gallery space for the Dunbar African American Museum and house the Dunbar Historic Archive. The project is listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. The restoration is a collaborative effort of many different groups. Funding will be used for an architectural engineer. Construction to include renovating the interior and all interior finish, HVAC equipment, electrical power, and lighting. Both SHPO, the Arizona Historic Advisory Commission, AORC recommended fully fund this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this project.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Yes.
I have one more. I'm just given current cost of construction equipment and materials. Honestly, $150,000 does not seem like it's going to be able to accomplish all of that. Is this phase 1 of a series of projects, or what?
Mr. Chair, members of Canada, you got to remember they're matching that with $100,000, so it's a total project cost of $250,000 just for this phase.
Okay, for this phase.
May I help you address that?
Sure, go ahead, Dorothy.
I wanted to offer a little bit further clarification. So the Dunbar Coalition has been working on securing this campus and completing a historically sensitive renovation of the facility piece by piece and phase by phase ever since 1995. So this project would actually complete the last 2 large classrooms to be renovated in the ground floor of the historic Dunbar School building that was built in 1918. So there is a significant amount of work that has already been completed. Also, the systems, like the mechanical systems that are referenced, that those are those are in place, but the finishes and the equipment inside the classrooms would be included in the scope. So perhaps that was a bit that gave an impression that the scope was larger than what it is. We feel it can be accomplished with this budget, including the matching funds that the Dunbar Coalition has committed. And I believe that the architect Corky Poster is on the line as well to add more information.
Well, thank you.
Yes, this is Corky Poster. To answer the question specifically, whether this was phase 1, this is probably phase 12. We've been the architect since 1995, and this is sort of the last pieces that would, as Dorothy said, complete the older portion of the original 1918 building. So it's sort of the last missing pieces of an effort that's gone on for really 25 years.
Thanks for the clarification.
Very good. Thank you, both of you, for being on the line. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the historic preservation grant applications?
Mr. Chair, I will move that the Arizona State Parks Board approve funding for the submitted 2022 Heritage Fund Historic Preservation Grant applications as follows. The Phoenix Housing Edison Impact Hub Rehabilitation Project in the amount of, there it is, $300,000, and the Dunbar Coalition in the amount of $150,000.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Is there a second?
This is Sarah King.
Debbie
I'll
Johnson,
second.
Debbie Johnson, thank you very much for seconding. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote.
Dale Larson.
Aye.
John Sefton.
Aye.
Lisa Atkins.
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan.
Aye.
Debbie Johnson.
Aye.
Sarah King.
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you very much, and to our guests, thank you for joining us. And again, Mickey, at the point, particularly, it sounds like with Dunbar, is on the last phase of their restoration project. We'd love to have them come to a meeting and show us the pictures and see how that restoration. It's a incredible history of the whole segregation movement up to present day, and I think it'd be a real good historical lesson for all of us to be able to see the good stuff happening.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, it may be a good time to have an off-site meeting in Tucson.
I would think that'd be a great idea. But you're getting a lot of head nodding.
We'd love to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, let's go
This is
to.
this is Sylvia from the City of Phoenix Housing Department, and I also want to thank the board for the approval.
Thank you, Sylvia, for joining us. Appreciate it very much. And Edison is just a couple miles east of us, so we can come over and see that anytime, right?
Absolutely. And happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. All right, agenda D8, the Heritage Fund non-motorized grant applications.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the Heritage Fund Non-Motorized Program provides grant funding for the construction and maintaining of non-motorized trails and trailhead facilities. A total of $500,000 was appropriated from the Arizona State Legislature in 2021 for this program. A project sponsor may apply for up to 20% of these appropriated funds, or $100,000. These grants also require a 25% match. As a reminder on the scoring is based on the 2020 Trails Plan, where there are 12 priority levels where funds could be used that generate a score. For example, a project may be putting in signs, creating maps, enforcing rules and regulations, putting in a restroom, and doing the small work on a trail. That will score higher than a project that's spending all their funds on a trail that's badly needed. So it's not only the scoring that is determining what gets funded and what's recommended, it's what the need is on those trails. So if they're just doing trail project and that's all they're doing, they're never gonna score well, but it certainly is a need. The first project, the Verde Valley Cyclists, are requesting $88,400 to construct 4 miles of new trail of the blowout wash trail system. This will be phase 3 of the project, where phase 1 and 2 have been completed with several new trails and rehabilitated trails already completed. The trail system is a collaborative effort of local, state, and federal land agencies to improve and expand recreational trails, which are east of Mingus Mountain, southwest of Cottonwood. The group has been improving and expanding the trails, making them sustainable and safe for users. The grant funding will be used to fund a trail crew to improve 4 miles of new trail on a trail called the Copper Chief Trail. The project is expected to begin in February and engage over 100 volunteers for this project. The project sponsor will also be providing cash match and material. The project is shovel ready, and staff, ASCOT, and AER recommend fully funding this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and I believe Kevin is also on the phone.
All right, thank you, and welcome, Kevin. Any questions or comments on the Verde Valley Cyclist project? Any other part of that is on the next agenda items, just so that you're preempted with that. Hearing none, go ahead.
The second project is with Flagstaff to make improvements at its trail system at Buffalo Park. They are requesting $100,000 to enhance accessibility along the Nate Avery Trail, a 2-mile loop within the park, repair existing drainage issues, provide signage, add accessible parking spaces, expand access to the existing restroom and ramadas, and make the existing 18 exercise stations more accessible, and also replace 6 existing stations to make those accessible with the universal design. The funds will be used to purchase the materials for the surface, walkway extensions, accessible striped handicap parking, engineering, and fitness station. Flagstaff is providing $135,000 in match, and staff, Ascot, and Eric recommend fully fund this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and I believe Martin is also on the phone.
Welcome, Martin. Always supportive of universal design ramifications for our trails. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the Heritage Fund non-motorized grant applications?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan, I'll move to approve, that the board approve the 2022 Heritage Fund non-motorized trail grant applications for the Verity Valley Cyclists and the Blowout Wash System Phase 3 in the amount of $88,400, and the City of Flagstaff for Buffalo Park Trail Enhancement in the amount of $100,000.
Motion's on the table. Is there a second?
John Sefton will second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote.
Dale Larson.
Aye.
John Sefton.
Aye.
Lisa Atkins.
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan.
Aye.
Debbie Johnson.
Aye.
Sarah King.
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. And again, to Kevin and Martin, thank you for being on the call with us, and congratulations on your successful grant applications. All right, item D9, the second part. Go ahead, Mickey.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the Recreational Trails Program, again, provides funding for constructing and maintaining non-motorized trail and trailhead facilities. Each fiscal year, a minimum of 30% appropriated recreational trail funds, $574,654, must be used for non-motorized trail. Also, the Recreational Trails Program sets aside $760,000 in diverse funding, which can be used for two types of uses on an existing trail. So this project can qualify either as non-motorized or diverse, as they allow mountain biking, equestrian, and hikers on these trails. So the Verity Valley Cyclists, they're seeking $150,000 for the continuation of the construction of the Copper Chief Trail. This funding will not be available to July of this year, and this is the second phase of this trailhead, this new trail construction, where they're going to request these funds to construct 4 to 6 miles of new additional trail. $149,800 of the grant will be used to pay for a trail crew, a conservation crew, who will work in remote sections along the trail, and also $200 for signage. Verity Valley Cyclists will be matching this with additional signage, a kiosk, equipment, cash, and up to 240 hours of volunteer time. Although not scoring well because the funding is focused on the trail construction, this trail will not only provide connections with the trail systems, but provide opportunities for Youth Corps who will be working along these trails in 4 to 6 weeks. Staff, Ascot, and Eric recommended to fully fund this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Atkins.
Mr. Chairman, Mickey, can you remind me who the land managers are, please?
I believe it's the Forest Service, but Kevin, if you could clarify where the property is located.
Sure, Mickey. It's in the Verde Ranger District of the Prescott National Forest.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chair, I will move that the State Parks Board approve the submitted 2022 Recreational Trails Program non-motorized trail grant application for the Verde Valley Cyclists in the amount of $150,000.
The motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
Debbie Johnson, second.
Thank you very much, Debbie. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Dale Larson.
Aye.
John Sefton.
Aye.
Lisa Atkins.
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan.
Aye.
Debbie Johnson.
Aye.
Sarah King.
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. And again, Kevin, thank you for joining us and clarifying that. Appreciate it very much. Congratulations on the successful grant award. Item D10, the Pinal County's Land and Water Conservation Fund Grant Award Amendment, and to Board Member Buchanan's earlier comment, costs rise. I think this is the second time at a board meeting we've had a similar request, and my guess is this won't be the last time we're having these kinds of requests due to those economic conditions of increased costs. So Mickey, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, so let me clarify on these additional costs. Due to the pandemic, as you know, the LWCF program came to a standstill because they couldn't do tribal consultations. So several of these projects are over a year before they were approved, which is one reason why their costs have increased significantly since the project has been approved. And also, when we're meeting future people applying for these funds, we're asking them to put at least a 25% contingency in these grants to allow for them to move forward with these grants with any extra costs that may come up once they're approved. So Pinal County submitted an LWCF application in January of 2020, requesting $2,051,203.50 to be matched with the same amount for a new regional park, Peralta Park. The board approved this project in February of 2020. The funds were to be used for roads, equestrian area, interpretive trails, multi-use trails, fencing, a well, campground host site, design and engineering, and picnic facilities. The estimates for these costs were from a design plan that they had for the park. It was submitted to National Park Service in March of 2020 for their approval. But as I said, due to the pandemic, the approval didn't come until January 1st of this year. Final plans were completed and the project went out to bid. As everyone is aware, construction costs have increased significantly in the past 2 years. The original project cost was $4,102,400, with LWCF grant paying for half. The low bid, after all the valley engineering was done, the county could do was $5,334,999, which is $1,232,592, $592, a 25% increase above the original estimate. Pinal County is seeking an additional $616,296.50 in LWCF funding to be matched with the same amount for their project. Staff, AORC, recommend fully funding this project, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and I believe Kent is also on the phone.
Thank you very much, and welcome, Kent. Any comments, thoughts from the board members? Mickey, just in terms of this trend, and it'll continue into 2022, and I know you're getting another wave of LWCF monies coming in the new year with it. My guess is it's going to be a balancing act between new projects and those that have already been approved along with the increased funds. So it just won't be new projects, it'll be these kinds of extensions, correct?
Correct, Mr. Chair, and I can tell you right now that the city of Chandler, again, they got approved for a new park 2 years ago, are going to be coming for another additional funding for their project next month.
Thank you. All right, any other thoughts, comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the amendment to Pinal County's original award?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan, I'll move that the board approve an amendment for the LWCF fund originally awarded to Pinal County for Peralta Park. And the original amount was $2,051,203.50. I move that we increase that by $616,296.50.
Motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
John Sefton will second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion by board members? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Dale Larson.
Aye.
John Sefton.
Aye.
Lisa Atkins.
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan.
Aye.
Debbie Johnson.
Aye.
Sarah King.
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Ken, for on this, Mickey.
Mr. Chair, just to let you know what the board approved today, it's over $5 million, it's almost $5.3 million of grants matched with almost $2 million. So just to make the board of what they approved today.
Thank you very much, Mickey. Good job. Really Item D11, Arizona State Parks and Trails Fiscal Year 2023 Strategic Plan Development Timeline, and we have Bonnie coming up to it. Welcome, good to see you.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your time today. My goal is to give you a brief overview of the coming timeline for the fiscal year 23 strategic planning process. This timeline is prescribed in accordance with statute and managed through the Office of Strategic Planning and Budget, and all cabinet agencies follow the same process in order to provide consistency in the deliverables to the governor's office. As a guiding body for our agency, we need to capture your input for direction, essentially vision, North Star, for our strategic priorities. This is the approach we are going to employ to accomplish this within the time frame of delivery. So we will hold 2 facilitated work sessions. The first will be a focus on vision, North Star, aspirational focus, mission, beliefs, competencies, and this is where we'll have discussions regarding, is this who we are, what our current state is, progress we've made, where are we today, and where do we need to go, essentially our future state. The second session, you'll be asked for input around the strategic goals, which will drive the agency toward the desired state over the next 5 years. These goals will be communicated through the director to his executive and extended leadership team, who will determine the annual initiatives needed to start moving those dots toward the desired outcome. So, next slide. To put it into sort of a timeline perspective, by month, you'll see the input sessions will be January and February, and then we will move to your input and priorities and guideposts for the management team under the director's leadership to develop the plan for the FY23 deliverable, as well as looking forward to the +5 concept. You'll see that throughout we have touch points that we will be working back with you, back and forth between the governor's office, input that we get from them, as well as delivering back to you what their input is and how that fits to your strategic priorities as well. Additionally, we would like to provide updates, which you'll see after we deploy all the way down to July, is put into place at least a semi-annual report out to the board, much like the dashboard that we do to the governor's office of how we're doing with the priorities set forth, if things change, as we saw, in 2020 as a perfect example, in 21, and give you an opportunity to help us prioritize going forward. If you'll see, going to the next slide, just I bucketed in terms of activities. So January and February, again, that would be key points for board input. These 2 work sessions, one will be, again, focusing on beliefs, values, vision, et cetera. We'll look at the mission, et cetera, maybe wordsmithing, not wordsmithing, that kind of thing, core beliefs, and other things that may need to change or get refocused. For example, I know we'll have input from SCORP, et cetera, so questions we might have on that. As well as the second work session will be really around the strategic goals and objectives. And then again, as I mentioned, those are the things that Director Broscheid and his leadership team will work through for operational plans, what can be done in each year, and a long-term range to get there. You'll see March to May is, again, where it goes to the leadership and operationalize your vision as guideposts for us, and we'll move toward submitting the actual two-pager, as it's been come to known in the governor's office, to the governor's office for their review. We will then report back to you in some way to let you know what their input was, because of course they have priorities as well. And then in July, we have our final submission. We'll present to you. We post to the website, deploy, and as I mentioned, we would like to do probably a semi-annual, I think is appropriate, dashboard to you as to our progress.
Thank you, Bonnie.
So
Thank you very much.
that's what you get to look forward to.
Are there
Any questions?
thoughts and comments? Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Jeff Buchanan. So 2 questions. First one, January's next month.
Right.
Do we
January,
know
February.
when, where, I mean, when do you expect to meet with us, get our input, et
My
cetera?
recommendation, and I'm open to the director input on this, Kelly will be reaching out, but my recommendation to get this going might be to do a session that's probably only about 2 to 3 hours, I'm thinking, for this first one. Perhaps after the board meeting in the afternoon in January might be an appropriate time. You know, I think we want to focus on the outcomes, so logistically, I think that might make the most sense. We also can make use of virtual tools as well. We have a lot of really great tools to employ. Those of you who have full-time jobs other than the board and maybe can't clear a calendar for a whole day can make appropriate hybrid input opportunities as well. And Kelly will reach out to work on logistics.
Okay, so that was question number one, but my request is, if we can't make it, we'd like to still be able to give some input. So even if
Absolutely.
it's,
So
here's a draft, comments, what do you think of this?
Right. My
Those kinds of
plan,
things.
or my recommendation would be to utilize, let's say, a Google Forms type of situation where we can gather input and allow for that kind of feedback.
Okay, great.
So
And then
I'm
the second part is really about, you know, I've been associated with a lot of organizations that have these wonderful long-range plans, and they don't put any teeth in implementation and tracking. And I know you mentioned dashboard, but as important, if we're ever gonna reach our potential, is to actually track how we're doing and make modifications along the way. So I would just be interested in staying
Absolutely.
in contact with you so that we get briefed, are we on track, are we off track, do we need to adjust?
No problem. Mr. Chair, Board Member Buchanan, what we do, because this is a very buttoned-down process through the Office of Strategic Planning and Budget, and every agency is required to report monthly on a scorecard situation, your progress toward your initiatives that are on your strategic plan. You will be able to get that information as well, and I'm happy to report any of that in whatever format is most helpful to you.
Mr. Chairman, we have to do that on a regular cadence. So, Bonnie, you might want to get some past examples of what you've reported up.
Oh, okay, absolutely.
And show so that you can
Right.
see, we have to be very specific
Yes.
about what we
Yeah.
put in there. That's
Thank
probably
you.
easier.
Thanks.
And I'll give you some of ours so you
Thank
see
you.
what a different agency looks like
Right.
as well.
That's an excellent suggestion, thank you. We did just have our business review as an agency yesterday. We do that monthly as well, and that is results for not only the strategic initiatives, but other operational metrics as well. So we have a full workbook, targets, trends, et cetera. So I'll be happy to be able to show you that, and I welcome the example as well from Land. Thank you.
Go ahead,
If
Ted.
I may add to that, Bonnie referenced the business review. Of course, the board is always welcome to sit on those, so the member Buchanan, if you ever want to see the month-to-month tracking, just the mechanics of it, if you're ever bored enough to do that or curious enough to do that, you're certainly welcome to join us in those, and that will be those monthly tracking, exactly what Bonnie referred to is, we don't wait to the end of the year, look back, did we do good, did we not do good? We track it constantly, so you're always happy to be welcome to be invited to those.
Great.
And we can also, at any time, bring up, which I think may be what Commissioner Atkins is referring to, is bring up the QuickBase scorecard, dashboard, pie charts, et cetera, that will show you the progress that's being made.
It's been a while since I think we saw the last update on the scorecard.
And
so-
we
it's
can
changed quite a
inundate you
bit,
with
because
those
now
things.
it's cloud-based and it's much easier.
Oh, very good.
But they're all data-driven.
Okay.
Yes, completely.
Go ahead, Vice Chair.
So Bonnie, great job. As far as these processes, as this launches as part of a new activity, do we have any insights from the governor's office on major initiatives from across the board?
We will be getting that according to the schedule that I've been giving through the community practice, is we will be getting the governor's priorities, feedback, et cetera. I believe it's going to be in March or April.
Okay.
So I don't have anything yet. It's a very structured focus from their perspective. So I will be getting, in fact, when I got the last strategic planning community practice, they originally last year was the first time they gave us their feedback early, like in April, to help us guidepost. And some of us didn't get it until May, so now we're hoping for March, which is why I'd like to have your all input and have those discussions in various forms so that we can kind of figure out where we fit.
Well, then recognizing that we can have all of our ideas and interests
Absolutely.
and things, and then if the governor has something totally different, then we've done a lot of time and attention on something
Right,
that may
right.
not be.
So we have a monthly meeting with strategic planning as a community practice through all the agencies. We are, not every agency, as you know, has a board or other influences, so I am happy to reach out directly to our strategic planning officer in OSPB, Denny Stravia, and find out if maybe we can be kind of on the top of that feedback list.
Thank you.
Or at the very least, invite them to our January session so that they could sit in on it or not, or did they do that completely separate? The reality is.
I had the same reaction.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully request that we have this exercise independently.
Very good.
I concur as recommendation.
Question I have, Bonnie, is then how do we engage the input from our advisory groups, AOR, Trails, Off-Highway, on all this? Because as Board Member Buchanan mentioned, this timeline is pretty quick. In just a handful of months, we're looking to have this presented and then to the board by July. So how do we engage those three groups, or is it through Bob and the rest of you that you are having similar conversations? I know SCORP is going on, but SCORP won't be ready either until later on in 2022.
Keeping in mind this is a living document, but I'm going to defer.
Yeah, Chairman, I think you hit it. SCORP is one area. I think seeing what grants are out there. This is kind of, I believe, what they kind of call the ecosystem review portion, keeping our ears to the ground, listening to the members here, listening to those other groups to find out, okay, what are those priorities? I think at the end of the day, that's feedback for you guys to set budget and land acquisition or disposal priorities. I think that's the key pieces. By May, as Bonnie's pointing out, deliverables will start to happen. Things will have to start giving out. So the CIP has to happen by July. The budget has to happen by June. As you know, we'll start talking fully budget in August, and then we upload there. So we have some movement here, but I think that was a long-winded way of saying is I think just keeping our ears to the grindstone, listening to feedback from the board. I think this is going to be the core group that lets us know, hey, here are the priorities from constituents or yourselves. That's where we start to use that term, operationalize that for the second portion of the strategic plan where we come in with staff. And there we say, okay, we've heard from the board, we've heard from the other advisory groups. Okay, what does that mean in terms of initiatives? And like Bonnie was saying, we'll have two that come out of this, and I think we kind of confused that last year. We have the 1-year 2-pager that we have to do every single year. All agencies have to do it, and then I think we're coming up on the 5-year plan. That's gonna be a longer term strategy. We can use that and parlay that into the same 1-year plan, but there's where I think we kind of confused things last year. So I think Member Buchanan's right. The timeline's short. I think we're learning every year to back it up a little bit to get you guys' input. So I think the first year I was in here, we started to get a little bit of budget input. We realized we're still pretty late to the game on that, so we're trying to back it out. And so that's why you're starting to see this January, February timeframe, because by March and April, we're starting to put pen to paper, and then by June and July, things are being submitted. So we have a little bit of slippage in there, but it goes fast. And I think, again, ultimately to the question you asked is we just have to hear from constituents. We have to listen to the board meetings, but I think it's ultimately on the board to say, okay, here's our priorities based on all that information.
And the one thing that has been stressed a lot this year, again, because the state did formalize like a streamlined process for all agencies to follow back about 2017, I do believe, 2017, 2018, to this 2-page situation. One of the things that's come to light again this year to a lot of agencies is that this is a living document. Strategy is living, annual initiatives, things change, priorities happen, so that we can have discussions throughout the year on that, and there is a process that we can put in place to adjust.
Yeah, my objective here in my comment is just to make sure that there is a seamless communication with our 3 principal groups that oftentimes hear the information first and then they're recommending to us. And I don't want to in any way have a disconnect there related to those three groups and what their goals and objectives and priorities may be. So as long as you all are facilitating that conversation with them so that we are aware of it. And of course, Board Member Sefton is on AORC, so we can hear a lot oftentimes what they're doing, but on the trails and the off-highway vehicle group, not often as much unless it's directly from Matt and the other Mickey, so.
Understood.
Chairman, I think it's a great point. And so we can try to formalize that.
Absolutely.
Bonnie talked about some Google Forms, but let's see what we can do to formalize that, because I think that'd be good information for you. Is this what we derived? Is this what you're hearing? I think the other good thing is we always have the previous draft plan as a starting point, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But at the same time, let's go back and see what we can do to formalize some of that information gathering.
And I appreciate knowing that everybody is open to multiple ways to give the input as well, so that's very helpful. Thank you.
All right.
Mr.
Yes, go
Chairman,
ahead,
Bonnie,
Commissioner
are you suggesting that we block off essentially the
Uh,
January 20th?
Kelly is gonna reach out. That was my suggestion, is the 20th
That's a good
might
point.
be a
Let's
good
do that.
idea. So that would be a suggestion that I have.
Yeah, the sooner she can confirm
Yeah,
that.
let's do
Legislature's
that.
gonna be in session. I mean,
I
so
just
it's
pulled that.
just-
I hadn't prepped,
Yeah, Chairman, we'll make sure we get all this
All right.
planned out,
Yeah.
like you're saying.
but that
it's
is a
gonna go
suggestion
fast.
simply
It's important.
because everybody is here.
It's
so.
tomorrow, so
Yeah.
be helpful to.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
You're
Bonnie.
very welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Certainly the opportunity to discuss these will always be well. So, D12, Brittany is here, and we have this little publication called Administrative Code that is updated. I think it's, I don't know, 80 pages or something of stuff that you know by memory, correct?
I try. So good morning, well, good afternoon, I guess now, members of the
No, you're
board.
still in morning.
Am I? Okay, great. Good morning. Mr. Chair, members of the board, for the record, my name is Brittany Hudson, and I'm the legislative liaison for State Parks and Trails. My goal for this morning is just to go over rules and rulemaking, and just a brief overview of what it is and why we're doing it. And what you should have in your binder is just the current rules that we have in place now, which haven't been updated in quite a while. So I'm just going to go through just a quick overview of what a rule is, rulemaking. I'm sure Commissioner Atkins, you know about this a little bit, possibly. So just a brief definition: a rule is an agency statement of general applicability that implements, interprets, and prescribes law or policy, or describes the procedures or practice requirements of an agency directly from statute. There are 4 types of main rules. We have regular rulemaking, which is if you're changing a lot of substantive information, if there's new legislation that comes out that requires an agency to create rules on a particular issue, et cetera, then an agency would use that regular rulemaking. Expedited is more of just cleaning up rules, not adding a lot of substantive information, not raising any fees. Exempt allows for rules not to go through some of the administrative code steps that you follow, and that has to be those rules have to be exempt directly through or by statute. The term rulemaking refers to the process of adopting the rules, as well as the actual document that you file with the Secretary of State's office, and the process is right in the administrative code under Title 41, I believe. Rulemakings are governed by the state's Administrative Procedure Act, the Secretary of State's rules, publication guidelines, and as well as the Governor's Regulatory Review Council, which every agency has to go through to answer their questions. Those publications go through their council, and also 5-year review reports as well go through their council. Next slide. Oh, it's already there. Why is rulemaking necessary? So the primary purpose of rulemaking is really to give notice to the public of the procedural substantive requirements that an agency has established. No rules are allowed to exceed statutory authority. So a rule can't way more than the statute authority that we're given. Agencies can create policy statements to really explain how an agency will enforce a rule, but those don't have to be, they can't be enforced on a general public. The rules have to be. Rules are usually favored over these policy statements because the rules provide public participation and it's a formal avenue for that public participation. Public participation can be, we can post our rules online and let the public know what we're doing. So we post the notices online, we post the draft rules online, the final rules online, and all of that also gets filed with the Secretary of State's office. So the public can weigh in and they can know what's going on or when an agency is writing or updating their rules. Next slide. So why is rulemaking important to Arizona State Parks Board? According to statute, the Arizona State Parks Board can make reasonable, or may make reasonable, that's a may and shall are those two big words, may make reasonable rules for the protection of and maintain and keep the peace in state parks and monuments. And these rules adopted by the Parks Board are subject to review and approval by the legislature. So once all of the rules are written and final, they would get filed with the Secretary of State, and they can also be approved by, or they also can be reviewed and approved by the legislature as well, excuse me. Every 5 years, Arizona agencies submit reports to the Governor's Regulatory Review Council on their rules for review and approval. So in 2019, before I came on board, our agency submitted a 5-year review report that described what our agency was going to do as far as updating our rules. And we need to update them to let the Governor's Regulatory Review Council know that we are updating them and know that this process is taking place. A 5-year review report is just an analysis of the agency's administrative rules. It just we go through every rule that we have and just we let the Governor's Regulatory Review Council know which rules we're updating. Are these rules, are we doing what we say we're doing within these rules? And then if we need to update them, we will do so, and they will know. Next slide. So continued, why is rulemaking important to Arizona State Parks Board? So our parks fees do need to be updated. We do have a chart within the rules right now. I don't know if you saw, but it's in the back, and all of those fees on that chart are in there. We cannot update any of our fees unless we update our rules, because that chart with those fees are included in the rule package. So we have to update our fees, and we have to update these rules. A part of what I do have a draft now, but a part of that draft is to remove that chart. That way we won't have to update fees update the rules every time we want to change a fee or update a fee at the park. And I was going to include some language that allows for all of our fees to be on the website or at the park or in some type of literature. So that way it doesn't have to be in the rules to where we have to update those fees every time we want to update a rule. Arizona State Parks has not updated the rules since previous administration, I believe, so it's been a little while since we've updated them. And since in our 5-year review we said we were going to do so, we need to do so. Updating our rules, or at least starting this process of updating them, shows the Auditor General that the agency is moving forward with what we say we were going to do in our 5-year review report. Since the audit is coming, we want to make sure that we work through what we need to work through. Next slide. So our next steps. Rulemaking will be separated for us into 2 sets. So the first set of rules that will be worked on will be our fee sections. There are, I can't remember off the top of my head, but maybe 3 or 4 fee sections within those rules along with that chart that will be updated. And after that rule set is complete, the rest of the rules will be updated that deal with, I believe it's Article 1 that deals with the board and things like that.
Article 2.
Yes, thank you. Along with legislative updates for the 2022 legislative session, I will include rule updates as needed for the board. And if the board would like to see the draft or anything, rulemaking is a really complex process. So I don't know if you want to go through that process more in depth, maybe on a one-on-one basis, but I do have a working draft. Once that draft is complete, I'm working with the editor of the Secretary of State's office to kind of make sure that what I have is correct as far as filing and things like that. But you are welcome to review, and we can set a meeting up and we can go through that.
So we're welcome to review, or we're required to review? I mean, does the changes to rules need to go through us? Or
Yes.
just-
So,
okay, that was
I'm
really my
sorry.
question.
Yes, approved.
We'll get
So,
them sooner or
yeah.
later.
Yeah, so Chairman, Member Buchanan, the only thing the board can't delegate is rule authority. So you guys will absolutely see the rules, probably as a draft, and then certainly we'll propose those to you as a final. But you'll have final say on that. Yep, absolutely. But both on the
So,
fee
I apologize for
and
that.
the written rule. So every rule package that'll come through, you guys will absolutely see it and vote on it.
So Brittany, the draft that
Mhm.
you were talking about, is that something that would have to be placed on our agenda that we would then need to take a look at? So are you anticipating that in January? or-
Yes, if I can get it in January, it should be on the January agenda. And like I said, I was just having just a few people look at it. Just for me, I worked on rules at the Department of Health for about a year and a half.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure that I bring the package to you guys, and it's fairly good to look at, so.
If you could get your draft to us.
Sure.
Well before the agenda.
Absolutely.
Draft agenda, so that we can begin reviewing it and taking it and noting questions kind of internally, and then when it comes to us formally, then we'll have maybe a little better education and orientation. on this.
Absolutely, I can do that, Mr. Chair, and if any one of you want a meeting, you know, together or just with me or anything like that, I can definitely set that up to go more in depth.
And I'm very mindful, I mean, it probably would be better almost one-on-one,
Mhm.
or Zoom, or something that it would be as a collective, because then
Mhm.
we'd have to post the fact that we're together and we're talking to you and the like. So I
Absolutely.
would, I think, appreciate, I know it'll be more work for you, but probably the one-on-one relationship would be better leading into the board meeting itself, so.
That would be perfectly fine. Yeah. And
Go ahead.
if there are any more questions?
Yeah, with respect to the fees and that structure, and recognizing the significant increase in costs, everything from supplies to other, do we have any financial scenarios where we're gonna miss major targets or any exposure on that front?
Mr. Chair and Member John Supton, I will defer to Tim on that.
Chairman, Member Shupton, yeah, the current law says that we have to look at, I think, like 11 states, other areas, what their fees are to be commensurate with them. We plan on kind of changing that from a yearly deal, but keeping that same criteria. So yes, we've been researching other states, other jurisdictions to see what their fees are. The difference, what we're gonna do is something similar to what we saw in the grid that you see in the fee package. If you look at the grid, all the numbers are actually the same. There's a big fancy grid with all the same numbers. And there's a fee span, so you can charge a low end or a high end. We're gonna keep that same concept in mind. We're just gonna remove, I think, all the actual numbers and have kind of a concept of a fee prescribed by the board. And like what Brittany is referring to is that those fees will be based on research, what else is out there, covering our operational costs, as things increase or decrease. It could actually go down. And that's what will ultimately be published. So it'll be a pretty simple version of what a fee schedule looks like.
But the fact that we have this fee schedule right now published as part of our rules is a self-imposed thing. It's not required by the state, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
So we have the authority to take it out if we want to as well.
Chairman, Member Buchanan, that's absolutely correct. You have full discretion to set very specific fees like were there before. Unfortunately, I think we missed some, so like maintenance fees, pet fees, we didn't have those. I think we were charging them. So I think this will strengthen up those other fees that we need to charge And then again, this will allow us with the new reservation system to get into the more dynamic pricing. So we're finding real heavy yield at Lake Havasu, and you kind of slow things down, maybe push some folks over here. This will give us a lot more flexibility to say, hey, we can bring prices down here, bring them up over here, ship folks over here, do promotional deals. And so the only difference, like I say, is you just won't see that grid table in the back, but we will publish actual figures. And again, you guys will get to see all that and vote on it before it happens.
Are the cabin rentals considered fees?
Chairman, they are, yep. So cabins, tents, entrance fees, and like I said, we were missing some of the others. Deposits for in case somebody destroyed a cabin. We didn't actually have those. Pet fees in case somebody did something like that. So.
And those will be added as well in there.
Right. So, but because it's rural, you guys got broad authority on being real specific, real broad. But yeah, we'll stay right within what the vein of the statute, which it says you get to set a fee, but it doesn't go any further than that.
I'm good, looking forward to it. Board members King and Palmberg and Johnson, any comments about Brittany's presentation on the rules? Do you kind of understand where we're headed here, since this is going to be a fast track?
Mr. Chair, Terry Palmberg. Yes, I understand. But a question I have, we have a rule regarding the selection of officers and the organization of the board, and it says at the first meeting following January 1 of each year. So our agenda item is not in keeping with our rules. Do we want to, is there a reason we're doing it this month? Or
No.
do we need to change the rules?
I'm sorry. Terry, we're not doing it this month. That was, the item on the agenda is just information to remind the board that it's next month. It's not an action
Oh.
item. That's all right. No, there's no change there. It's still the first month of the new year, so that's when the election will take place. But thank you for pointing that out. We're not doing that today.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? This is a huge undertaking, Brittany, so thank you very much for getting that draft to us so that we can kind of become knowledgeable, understanding. So when we do meet with you one-on-one or virtually or whatever it is, hopefully that'll expedite this formality, okay?
Sure, and I will get the draft out to the board within this, hopefully by tomorrow, but
Well,
early next week. And that way you guys will have the rest of the
least a few
time
weeks
before
before the
Sure.
board meeting would be great.
To look it over.
For Christmas morning would be great.
Give you all a present.
Something to read.
Scrooge you. All right, thank you very much, Brittany. And
Thank you.
again, just to reinforce, D13 is just an information item. We will be doing the election for any all that might be interested in being nominated next month. Let's go to the next item, D14. Future agenda items. I'll lead this off and then ask for board input. You all received, I think, Tim, you sent it out yesterday, or someone did send it out yesterday, this letter from Boyce Thompson Arboretum. And the letter is, and I think all the board members got a copy, if I remember right. So the idea, this is something that we will be placing in January. It's one of the reasons that there's legal implications, there's property implications, on and on. The staff is going to be doing their review of this and taking a look at it. But we did get a mayor, both from the executive director of BTA as well as the mayor of Superior, inviting the board to be able to discuss what that property is, the picket house, et cetera. So that's one item that definitely will be on the next agenda. Whether that requires an e-session or not, we'll figure that out at that particular time. Other agenda items that the board would like? Mr. Buchanan?
So, Mr. Chairman, Jeff Buchanan with two comments. One's related to a current event as well. So
Okay, go ahead.
briefly, first thing, I'm looking at the schedule for next year's meetings, and they're all listed once again in the central office. If we can, plan at some point in time to
You
do
have our
meetings
plans.
elsewhere. I drove 3 hours this morning. I'm happy to drive all the way to Reardon Mansion if we want to do one up there. But I just think it would be healthy to get to visit some of our parks.
Well, having both you and board member King in the Tucson general regional area, I think we need to make a move on that. So thank you very much. That's a pledge.
Thanks. And the second one, I was talking to both Mickey and Jeff this morning about a call I got while I was on the way here about a trail project in our general area. And so the reason so that's kind of a current event, and they've offered to come and work with this organization as they work to build this trail. But Mickey said something a couple of times this morning that caught my attention, and it relates to board business this way. When you were talking about scoring of trails, you said a couple of times that construction of new trails does not score well. And so, given that, I'm not sure that we have the scoring criteria right. I mean, so I would ask for you to think about it and then come back to us what your professional opinion is on scoring criteria, because if we're talking about awarding money for non-motorized trails, but to build a new trail doesn't score well, I'm just not sure we've got the right philosophy here.
Well, and I think what we can do is have the scoring criteria review as an agenda item that we can go through.
Right.
Is there a context to that statement?
Well, so the context is related to the current agenda item. I got a phone call about an organization that's looking to build a new trail, connecting the Arizona Trail with some town of Patagonia, Sonoyta Creek, all of this, which is a state park. They're looking to build that, but again, just listening to what Mickey said about building new trails does not score well, then, and I understand we want to maintain the trails we have. I'm just not sure that, I know we reviewed it last year, I think, the scoring criteria, but I would like to know what you think, if you think we've got it right or we need to adjust. So that's the context.
Yeah, and we can easily put that on the agenda, so good point. And I've had questions about the scoring criteria, and I know they have to reassess this every time these grants go out every year, so well put. Anything else on future agenda items? Board Member Palmer, King, Johnson, anything that you'd like to see on a future agenda item?
Nothing here.
All right, thank you very much. All right, current events. Jeff kind of led it off. Any other current event items that board members would like to report on? Hearing none. By the way, Bob, are you still on the line?
Yes, sir, barely.
I guess the current event is you're not feeling well. We understand that. But before I get to the call to the public, I just wanted to mention to you directly on behalf of the staff that are here at the meeting, as well as all the staff behind the scenes. Terrific job this year, all of you getting through and again, working with the complexities and the difficulties of the pandemic and all of the areas, the wildfires in the summer, et cetera. Your staff has just done an exceptional job. So do get well, and we're looking forward to having you back in the saddle in January.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for those comments too. They did work really hard this year, so really appreciate it.
All right, call to the public. Any members of the public like to address us for a future board item discussion? Hearing none, skipping the e-session, future meeting dates, and to Jeff's point, the central office is not the guaranteed location for sure. We will look at some options early on, particularly with the strategic plan coming into place. And then finally, before I adjourn the meeting, I would like to thank each and every one of our board members. We have everybody here today on it, did a terrific job. It's been such a pleasure and an honor working with all of you. And on behalf of myself, as well as the rest of us here, wishing you all a very happy holidays, safe, healthy, and hope to see you all in person as much as possible come January. So with that, adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.